Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's episode of the Small Business Surgeon podcast. And guys, today's guest is somebody who is right down my street with a lot of the things I've been discovering recently. So I'm very excited to bring her on. She is an empowerment strategist who helps conscious spiritual truth seekers remove the emotional blocks to success. And she is the host of the Spirit, Purpose, and Energy podcast. Please welcome to the show, JJ Flizanes. JJ, welcome.
Thanks, Sam. Excited to talk about business.
Oh, I know, right? I've been over your websites, and I know we use the booking service that got you here, and I was very excited when I saw it come in. Can you describe just what it is you do for the audience? Because I'm very excited to have them listen to somebody that runs in your vein.
Well, I'm going to compartmentalize into two parts.
Okay.
On one part, I would say that just what you read in my bio, I work with conscious spiritual truth seekers to actually create a roadmap to emotional healing. So that's anyone who is looking to be successful and break through patterns and old habits that are running your life. People who are conscious enough to understand that your core wounds affect you in every area of your life, from your health to your relationships to your business. So that is for everyone who fits that bill. Now, on the other side, in the business side, I also work with entrepreneurs and podcasters to get their message out into the world in their zone of genius in a way that brings them and others joy, passion, abundance, and success.
Ooh, I love that. I have that in my I am statement, the joy and the passion and the abundance. So man, there's so many questions I have to ask you, because I come from a blue collar working class background, and I've grown my way out of there, and yet I still hold on to some of these things that the blue collar guys come from. What do you think it is that causes people to follow in these habits and do the things that they get stuck with?
Well, I heard you say on a Friday episode of yours about, that you are the sum of the people that you hang out with, which is something we all know. So it's kind of the same thing. You said if you can only do a couple push-ups and you're the best of your group, then go find guys that can do 30 push-ups, right? So it's the same idea that success has clues, and that there is a different, I heard you talk about, people that there aren't fat, successful people, right? Like old, fat, successful people. Well, okay. Same thing in business. Like you said, find someone that's doing what you want to be doing and model them, but more than model them, you do need to hire them. Because what happens in what you see in the world is different than what happens behind the scenes. And from their own way of dealing with themselves to how they run their business to how they operate in their lives, there's a lot of things people don't share on social media and on platforms like this.
Oh,
I mean,
no
I'm an
doubt.
open,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so we have this idea of what we think it looks like, but we don't know what it takes to get there. So when it comes to figuring out what works for you, I mean, for me, one of the things that I did recently after my podcast for years and sort of attracting people who want to learn more about law of attraction and realizing that there was an endpoint or not an endpoint, but there was a block that a lot of people would have to what they could manifest and what they could attract is because it's like the guy that wins the lottery that loses it in the next 3 years and goes into greater debt because that person wasn't. So I'm going to go woo-woo for a second. That person wasn't in a frequency, wasn't in an expanded state long enough to just to pull it in themselves. They did pull it in. They won the lottery, but they didn't feel psychologically that they deserved it, that they earned it. So because there was a disconnect between, I don't deserve this. I don't know how to hold this. I don't know how to be here in this abundance because it makes me feel uncomfortable for 10 reasons to Sunday. Then we subconsciously sabotage, and then we get rid of it and we feel guilty and weird about all that kind of stuff. So I think it's the same for understanding that we all have core wounds and we all have patterns and habits and beliefs that really run our lives, but we don't know what they are. And then we fight against them and we don't know what they are, and we don't understand how to break through and get to the next level.
Well, you often see that trend as well with inherited money, to where having the mindset of somebody with money is man, it's been such an interesting journey for me to get down and to figure out, because I never had a problem making money. I was always able to make money, but I always held on to the fact that I was blue collar and I wasn't going to be as rich as the next guy. And that was taught to me from a very early age, that rich people were rich and you're not. So just you deal with it and you get on with it. And how do you think it is that people wake up to understanding that the law of attraction is actually real? And how do we get them on that first step? Because honestly, JJ, my life is so wonderful now. And I've done everything by just writing down my goals, by working towards them, by positive manifestation, by gratitude, and it works. Like, so what's the first step to waking somebody up to saying, hey, you know what, maybe the hippies were right, and this frequent, because if you go back in time, you have I think, therefore I am. You have seek and you shall find. You have ask and you shall receive. And it's like all these lessons exist and we know them, but we don't know to practice those exercises. Like, how do we even like start to chip away at that?
Well, first I'm going to say, and no offense to any hippies that might be listening to this, the hippies aren't necessarily right because you have a lot of really poor hippies and spiritual people. So you have to really, you can't just assume because someone meditates and does yoga. Don't even get me started on that. And that they are all of a sudden they're somehow Zen and they think they're better than everybody else and that they should be, successful or rich or happy or in good relationships. That the two don't go together. All right. So just keep that in mind that we all have a different set of desires and goals and what we think that looks like.
Yes.
And who's to say what your definition of happiness and joyful and being on purpose is? Only you know.
Mm-hmm.
But from the outside in, I was on a podcast with Dr. Sharon Stills. It was she was at the time doing the bioregulatory medicine podcast. She isn't anymore,
Okay.
but she had asked me about, law of attraction, manifestation, and manifesting, and how do you know if someone doesn't know what their beliefs are? How do you know? And I said, by what you're manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at someone's what they attract. If they're always in trouble, something's always going wrong, they're always losing things, they're always late, their planes are being delayed, they get lost, people take advantage of them. You can tell what people's beliefs are based on what they attract.
Mm-hmm.
They may not know it, and you may not know it, not you personally, but anyone listening, because you're not examining or being an observer of your life like that. And maybe, there have been things in your life that have happened that you feel were unfair, unjust, victimized by, possibly. And so therefore you're mad about them and you're holding on to that. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at life as a victim and you're putting out victim energy and you're attracting more reasons to be a victim.
Yep.
So, we have to get a hold of what it is we believe and start asking those questions, because you can't do anything. You can't, like I heard that you're a painter. Okay. So you can paint over a wall, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't paint over something broken
Right.
and it's going to fix it.
Well,
So
it's funny how that lesson corresponds, because 98% of being a good painter is preparing the wall before you paint it.
right,
Like,
right.
and it's
Fix the cracks, fill in the holes.
yeah, and then
Make sure.
too many people just try to paint, and then their wall looks terrible, and then they don't achieve what they set out to achieve. It's a nice looking room, and like you got to do it right, or you got to do it twice. And what I find is nobody ever told anybody that like you're the actor in your own play, that you can write your own scripts,
Mhm.
and whatever you focus on is your reality. And this whole thing it starts with your perception of yourself. And the biggest shock to me was just how much time when I started becoming the small business surgeon, JJ, I thought I was going to be fixing businesses and building operating procedures and setting things, but it's not that. Like 80% of what I do is fixing entrepreneurs. It's fixing their brain. Which gets me into your history, because I want to know how you discovered this, because it took me all of 40 plus years to discover it, and it took me another 3 years to believe it would actually work. So what's your story in discovering this? Because it's not taught in schools, is it?
Oh, no. I want to address three things before I answer that. Two things before I answer
Sure,
that
yeah.
question, because you asked me the question of how do we get them started. I want to answer that. But before that, I want to, my partner owns a podcast production company. I have a podcast network, and we
Mm-hmm.
were coaching podcasts. We had a podcast mastermind a couple of years ago, and they were sort of the downflow from someone else that was offering programs at really, really high ticket prices, but they weren't being serviced. And so they were an
Right.
easy, like, come with us, we're going to help you out. And of course, everybody was thrilled with what they got within the first 4 hours of their VIP day with us. But what I stopped doing it, although I will do it again, but I stopped doing it because what was most frustrating for me was to come to to have podcasters in a mastermind and to recognize that the biggest thing in their way wasn't the trip,
Mm-hmm.
the marketing or the tips or the tricks or the, the funnel. It was them.
Yep.
And so I just would say, guys, and they didn't sign up for that kind of work. So, at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And they don't want to do this because they don't want to do what I'm telling them to do, which is they have to get out of their own way. They have to do the other work that I'm doing over here that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think I would need to pull into this.
Right.
But now even last year I did my very first episode, or was it this year? No, last year in January, it was like, I decided, okay, no more. I'm going to cut myself off at the knees, unfortunately. And I'm going to say that I'm only going to have people in my mastermind who've gone through my emotional courses because
That's
so
the
I'm
exact
not,
same. Wow. Like, well done. Like, yes.
they go like this, they flow
Mm-hmm.
together. Why
Mm-hmm.
can't, and they have to be, I cannot be put into a place where you can't hear or look at or examine that possibly what's standing in your way is your own belief system
Yes.
or your own habits or patterns or the way that you upper limit or the way that you self-sabotage or the reason why you won't do XYZ. Anyway, so I said that, and
we're the same frequency. I don't know how we connected on this Podmatch deal, but like, you're supposed to be on my show. Like, I'm literally in the middle right now. I'm on day 50, so it'll air after I'm finished. But I'm doing 90 days of tracking everything I do and showing it publicly so people can see. It's about the mindset. It's about what you call out for, and it's about what you set out to achieve. Like, there's nothing else in your way except what you desire. Write it down, figure it out. And most people never figure it out. They take on a business because they want to be their own boss, and they just want to work for themselves, and that's what they achieve. And most entrepreneurs are absolutely terrible bosses.
well, most entrepreneurs are terrible entrepreneurs because you have to know that if you own your own business and you want to be successful, you will have to face yourself.
Every
Your
day.
lessons that you will learn, just like in parenting or in marriage, are going to be that much more amplified because now it's attached to money.
Yep.
And your relationship to your self-worth, and because you have to ask for money or put yourself out there or figure out what to do about that, that is going to be like, if you're want to be successful, then be open to changing who you are and growing as a person, because you are only as good, your business will only be as good as you are, and will only grow at the same rate you grow as a person, as an individual.
100%. Yeah, business, it's a direct reflection of the person that owns it. Like, it's just an extension of their personality, their traits, their characteristics. It flows throughout the company.
Yeah. And you asked me like how to get someone started in this, and my sort of,
Well, you said at the beginning, you said I'm going to go all woo-woo. Well, that's the reaction I get from 80% of blue-collar guys. Like, oh, it's woo, I want none of that. Right? See, so that was why the key critical question is, how do you get them? Because of that perception, yeah?
well, let me talk to those guys. Trust me, I've talked to those guys.
Yeah.
I've presented multiple times for Pacific Gas and Electric. They are the blue, you can't get more blue collar.
Yeah.
Okay. And have 500 men in a room with their arms crossed looking at me like, what's she going to teach me? What are you going to tell me? Like, the resistance was so high. I worked so hard. I won them over, but it was so much work. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't walk into a room full of guys who are literally resisting me from the moment I get there.
Yeah.
Because that's not the kind of business I want to have, because I'm exhausted for weeks after that. I want to be in full of a room full of people that share the energy. But anyway, back to here's for you guys and everybody, how to explain law of attraction and quantum physics, because it is quantum physics. You understand, maybe not now because we have digital, but digital's fine too. But let's go back to the radio dial. You all understand you cannot listen to something if you want to hear here in California. One of my favorite stations used to be, I've moved, so it's all different now. 102.7. It's like, pop station.
Right.
102.7. But I also love my Latina station, which is 96.3, or it was anyway. So we have 96.3. I'm listening to Latin music, or at 102.7, I'm listening to pop music. If I want to listen to that 96.3, I'm not going to find it at 102.7. I'm not going to find it at 96.5 or 96.7. You understand frequency when it comes to your television, your computers, and your radios. So we operate, our energy, our emotions indicate what frequency we're on. And without even going woo, I know that if everyone thinks just for a second about a time where you walked into a place and you either felt really, really good or really, really bad before anything happened, before you talked to anybody, that is energy. and you walked into a place that felt really good, like a spa, or, some place that's designed really well, or that's going to the beach. Like there is something that's a frequency. The
Right.
beach has a frequency.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the frequency, and how we can tell as humans what frequency we're on. Well, there's a couple of different ways, but first, your emotions, what you're feeling, what you're holding on to, what you're emanating. I'm sure everyone also can remember a time where you have either been this person or been with somebody who's been really, really angry
Hmm.
and suppressing it.
Oh yeah.
So that person
Yeah.
might put a smile on their face, or they might be, trying to hold back all their anger, but what's coming out of them? Anger, anger, anger. Right? So that again is frequency. And life is not responding to what you're saying.
Right.
Life isn't responding to what you're thinking. Life is
Hmm.
responding to what energy, emotional energy, you're putting out into the
Hmm.
world.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, man. What was life like for you before you discovered this, and how did you figure it out?
One of my coaches at the time, back in 2002, I just moved from New York City to California. I started my business in 2001. I was going to networking events. I was meeting all kinds of new kinds of people,
Hmm.
business coaches and life coaches. And I was working with a coach, and she sent me an Abraham audio, Abraham Hicks.
Oh,
And I
okay.
put it on. I put it on in my car, and I heard, "You are the creator of your own reality."
Mm.
And I was like, "What? That's great news. If I'm creator of my own reality and I don't like something, I get to change it." Now, before you all, I can already feel, because you're going to take it in one of two ways. You're going to take it like I did and think that's amazing opportunity. That's amazing news. I don't
Right.
like it. I can change it. Or you're
Right.
going to hear, I didn't ask to be victimized. I didn't ask to be raped. I didn't ask to be robbed. I didn't create that. I didn't ask for that. And so you're
Hmm.
going to feel bad or guilty or reject that concept, because you're going to think that you asked, just like I said to you a couple minutes ago about it, if you're in victim mentality and you just have this belief that bad stuff happens to you all the time,
Hmm.
then bad stuff happens to you. Did you ask for the bad stuff? No, but you're in the frequency of the bad stuff because you're
Right.
literally expecting it to happen. Now, there are other levels to this. So again, for anyone that's had some kind of trauma or you've been a victim of something, I'm not saying that you asked for that, but know that there is there are lessons, I believe. Because here's the thing. You can choose one or two ways. You can say that life just happens and I have nothing to do with it.
Hmm.
Shit just happens. I didn't affect it or call it in any other way, which makes you a victim forever and powerless forever.
Hmm.
There is no feeling good and powerless. None.
None.
Or you can go to the other extreme, which is what I always recommend everybody do, is take responsibility for everything, even other people around you in your environment. Take responsibility that you've attracted this energy, these things somehow, some way, for some reason. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means that you have a frequency going, you have a belief going, you have a feeling going, a momentum going
Hmm.
that you don't know yet until you get told many times by what's coming into your life. And so for me, that when I heard that, changed everything. I was a great victim when I was in high school. I used to tell people, "You hurt my feelings, and here's how you hurt my feelings, and here's how you can never do that again." I mean, I was very articulate at what people would do, how they would hurt my feelings. And then all of a sudden, that victim consciousness went away. And I totally understood that I was the creator of my own reality. And then I took that and I ran with it. And I've been running with it ever since. So, I've created businesses and attracted my partners and, all the things. Uh, and also have grown. This isn't an all or nothing. This isn't that you learn something and then your whole life has changed and you never continue to grow or evolve.
Hmm.
We're like a tree that has many
Yeah.
deep roots. And so you don't just cut off one of those veins of that, or root system, the one root, and think that everything is great. And it's not even that there's anything bad. It's just that we're constantly fine tuning and expanding and deciding, once you get to the next level of
Hmm.
success, love, or abundance, and you go, "Oh, this is cool. Now what?
Hmm.
How do I get to the next one?"
Yep.
And there's growth in between each stage. And you can say, "Hey, I'm good here and I never want to change again." And that's up to you. But I think we're here to kind of have a good time and keep growing.
Oh, absolutely. And every time I hit a level and I'll get down, I say, I'll be good here. I'm good here. Man, you give it just a few months, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And I'll just build something else and go work just as hard, because it's about the passion of the mission, and it's about being able to look up and say, you know what? If I do this, this, and this, I'm going to be able to receive that, that, and that, and that, and that are where I want to go in my life. And I think that the biggest difference for me is that manifesting stuff, it gives you the goals to hit at. And it opens the door to the opportunity to go and get the thing. Like, I think far too many people just say, they think manifestation is thinking about stuff and making it pop into existence. Whereas you think about stuff and it moves it towards you in a way, or it moves you towards it, but you still have to take action. You still have to take steps to move forward. You can't just manifest and hope. But for me, the manifestation makes my brain work in a way where it moves from a I cannot into a how can I kind of mindset, and it just keeps going after the thing I want over and over and over until magically the solution appears. And it's like, I can't seem to get it through to everybody else, like just how amazing it is being able to control whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah. So, what were some of the first things you learned to do when it came to manifesting? What was some of what did you try little once, dude? Because for me, it's parking spaces, and it works pretty much every single time. And that was the first thing I learned to focus on and make sure. And you can ask with Nina too, my partner. She will be listening to this show. But for me, it was parking spaces. How did you get started?
It was 22 years ago. It was probably business, because I was driving around working with clients. I was a personal trainer at the time, with my personal training business. And I'm sure it was relationships, it was business opportunities. But what I noticed about, the resistance factor, because people, it's a lot deeper than, it's not just, put, like you said, it's not just put a picture up on a vision board and then you're done and you think it's going to happen, or like say an affirmation that says, I'm going to be a millionaire. And then tomorrow you're going to make, that's like,
no.
It's a lot more intricate than that in terms of understanding how you apply this stuff to you and how your relationship with it. But I would notice that because sometimes when we focus on what we really, really, really want, we have resistance to it. We have resistance because what the tape we have playing is life without it. So what we're actually activating energetically is the lack of having it, not the having of it. And so we make it very conditional. And what I've learned about law of attraction what I learned and became a master at was during my marriage as it was ending and before and as I got divorced, because in a situation where you can't look at your life, your what is, and use that as a way to feel good, you have to, what law of attraction is, well, here's the most famous to me quote, the most important quote you can ever have. So if you're listening and you want to write this down or you want to repeat this, I'm going to say it twice, because to me, I keep saying it over and over again to my audience, to my members, to my clients, and to myself, because it literally is law of attraction in a nutshell. The only reason that you want what you want is because you think you'll feel better when you have it. The game of law of attraction is that you have to feel it before you can get it. And the fact is, you only want the feeling. You don't even need the thing. So you have to get unconditional with being able to get the feeling first, and then allow whatever you want to come in at that level. That's the whole being on the same frequency of that which you want. If you're wanting $1 million, but you bitch about your bills and you always say, I don't have any money, I don't have any money, I don't have any money. Do you think you're in alignment with having $1 million? You're not. No. You have to get to that place, right? So, but for me, so with resistance, because again, so I didn't have resistance to food. I would manifest food like crazy, like free pizzas, free whatever, like people buying me stuff. Because I just like think it. I'd think, yeah, I kind of really want 2 pizzas. I'm just going to order 1. And then they'd mess up the order and I'd get 2 pizzas and I get 1 for free. And I was like, man, like that comes to me like that. Food, I could manifest so fast. It was always the perfect evidence to let me know how powerful I am as an attractor when I don't have any resistance to something.
Dude, I love manifesting food. It's so much fun because you just get to sit there. Like, you always have that what's for dinner conversation. But when you manifest food, you just get to sit there and imagine what would be the tastiest thing to have in my mouth right now. And then somehow you end up with that. And that's that. Whether that's you getting off your ass and going to the store and buying it, and cooking it, but then all of a sudden you're experiencing it. And that I think is what people miss. I love daydreaming about what food I'm going to eat, and then boom, I'm eating the food. And also to your earlier point about being a millionaire, I've been almost to a millionaire, and I identified as blue collar working class, and I came all the way back down to blue collar working class, and now I identify as a millionaire. I say, if I'm to be a millionaire, I must do the things that a millionaire does. I must save in the savings vessels. I must invest in the investment vessels. I must look after my income vessels as a millionaire does. And boom, it changes overnight, and your finances are the best they've ever been. So, Like it all starts with imagining what you want. I mean, it's so crazy that we line up so well. You are vastly more experienced on the subject than me. I'm only just discovering it, but I love the fact that I found somebody on the show that can just kind of go with it and explain how it works. I don't even know what to freaking ask you next. It feels surreal that I was trying to get guests to better explain this topic, and then you showed up. Like I was putting.
There you go. You manifested a way to better explain this topic.
I really did, because again, I'm the small business surgeon. I go in and I consult, and I have products that people buy, and I end up spending more time fixing the entrepreneur mindset. And it's not necessarily fixing the mindset that's the problem. It's that having the belief, these guys having the belief in themselves that if they would just commit to something and start thinking about it and focusing on it consistently, like they all start a business because they want that freedom, and yet they don't sit there and plan out where it needs to go. Tell me some of the things that you work on with entrepreneurs when they start working with you, and some of the things they can do, like the audience could maybe do quickly to get slightly a grip on this.
Well, on my website, there are there's two things that would possibly interest this audience.
Okay.
One is the 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective. It's a 90-minute class. It's free. And then 3 fastest ways to make money podcasting.
Ooh.
That's another class, and that's free. But
I should use that one.
But in terms of where people start, at this point, with my just general entrepreneur people, in my inner circle mastermind, they come from people who listen to the show. I don't work with people who don't listen to the show.
Right.
And a requirement is they have to go through their core wound work, and they have to go through their big leap work, their upper limits. We're getting ready to go to our first retreat in Mexico in about a month from now. And there's only one person who hasn't done one of my sort of rewiring your core wound pattern programs. And I said, okay, it's time. Go do the roadmap to emotional healing, get your core wounds. Let's talk before we go, because you'll get a lot more out of this group, because everyone's been deeply in this for months or years. And I want to kind of catch you up. So to me, and now that sounds, and maybe it's not the core wounds that I would start somebody off with if I was working with them, like on a VIP or something, but I would absolutely work with someone on Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. The Big Leap breaks down, and that's what I think a great complementary thing is for Law of Attraction. Because Law of Attraction, the way most people understand it, is if you just get into alignment, then you'll get the things that you want. Yes, you'll get the things that you want, but you may not be able to hold on to them because you haven't learned how to expand into holding and receiving more.
Yeah.
So the Big Leap kind of became this next, like, oh, that kind of explains why people can't get past a certain level, because there are 4 beliefs that you hold that stop you from getting more or allowing in more. And then there are 5 or 6 ways in which we upper limit. And to me, it's mechanical. I think I explained, I've had a lot of people, tell me over the years that I've been the first person to explain Law of Attraction in a way they can actually understand it, because I am more linear and logical, and I can kind of explain it in kind of real world technology that isn't quite woo-woo, even though I am extremely woo-woo, but at the same time, extremely left-brained, and to be able to tell you how to think about it in different ways, or how to see it in the world, to make it more mechanical than just sort of theoretical or energetic. So I would look at, the ways at which we upper limit. So if you have this end, it's called an upper limit because it's how much money, love, success, and abundance you allow in. And you can figure out where that is based on how you upper limit. If you get sick and you get hurt, or you self-sabotage, or you worry yourself into, like, you want this thing. If you want something that you've never had before, you have to grow into being allowed to have it come in.
Yeah. You have to do things you've never done before.
Right. And you have to, but most people will say, because if they upper limit with worry or criticism and blame or squabbling with their partner or getting sick and getting hurt, they'll go, oh my God, it's a sign, I shouldn't do it. I'm like, no, it's an upper limit, because you've never been, it's uncomfortable for you to feel more joy, and you don't know how. And so when you can identify at every stage that there's this upper limit part, and you know how and why you do it, now we can figure out how to get through it so we can expand into receiving more, because otherwise you're just going to be circling the drain in the same, in the same temperature gauge. That's how I kind of talk about it, that we all have a temperature gauge.
Yeah.
And that's how much you allow in, or a gas gauge, like if it's 13 pound, whatever, 13 gallons is all we allow in. Well,
Right.
what if I want 15? Well, then you have to grow yourself
Hmm.
into allowing 15. And there's a way to do that instead of just thinking that, oh, something's wrong and I don't deserve it, or going back into a pattern. If you can identify the pattern, then we can break the pattern.
Right. 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 I like to. I like to equate it to a thermostat, because
Hmm.
if the thermostat on the house is set at 70 and you heat the house to 95, but you never change the thermostat, the house will always go back to 70. Always. No matter how many times you heat it, until you change that thermostat, it won't stay at that temperature. It'll always revert to the temperature that it's set to. And it's the same with the mind.
Definitely, absolutely. I mean, I use temperature too, and in that moment, I came up with
I,
the gas.
I love it. I love it. Hey guys, it's Sam, and as the small business surgeon, I spend a lot of time fixing businesses. But what surprised me the most was the amount of time I spent fixing the entrepreneur. If the entrepreneur's broken, the business will never run right. So if you're feeling stuck in life, if you're feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, and you don't know where to begin to sort things out, don't worry. You're not alone. It happens to all of us. I want to introduce to you my solution, The Clinic, a 90-day accountability program where I teach you to take control of your life. Best investments I've made have always been in myself. Go to FollowSam.Live and click Join the Clinic to apply. Tell me a little bit, JJ, about your history in business and how you got started out, and some of the things that you've achieved as you've gone along the way.
One of the best manifestations early on was, so I started my own business in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And 2001? Yep, 2001. I'd moved from New York City to California to Los Angeles in 2000. Worked, and I was acting at the time. I was sort of waiting tables and doing that kind of thing that I was doing in New York also. But I also in New York had an office. I was running an Australian-based company inside of a New York City gym chain. And so I kind of had my own office and my own thing. And then I was also really high up in a restaurant company that still exists and is thriving in New York City. And they kept building more restaurants. And so I was like
Oh
juggling all
wow.
these different things.
Uh-huh.
And but I wasn't really acting as much as I wanted to. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. So I moved to California
Uh-huh.
and decided I was going to do that. But I also was having my own personal training business, and I opened that up in 2001. So I ran a personal training company where I had other trainers and we serviced people all over California. And I managed the trainers and the clients, and I had my own clients. And, along the way, I learned what I liked and didn't like about managing certain people and businesses. And I also, even with the law of attraction stuff, realized that in my mind, to have a successful personal training business, I needed to find people who needed us,
Right.
who were needy. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens when you find people that are dependent and
Mm-hmm.
needy, they're also victimy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh,
Right.
I don't
Right.
like these
Right.
people. I don't like these people. So I switched my model, and I went more kind of coaching style,
Mm-hmm.
where I started to create products and programs. And so that people could then be responsible for doing their own thing while I could coach them. Cause I'd have people call me, I'd be in magazines and have someone in Florida call me and say, hey, I read about you in a magazine. Can you work with me? And I'm like, I don't know. You're in Florida. I'm in California. We could try. So I
Mm-hmm.
did phone stuff. And then I had a client in Arizona who said, well, can we do Skype? And I said, sure. And so back in 2009, I
Uh-huh.
started training people on Skype, which then, of course, became Zoom. So I was way ahead of the curve before COVID. I had a lot of clients on all over the country and all over the world, on, video platforms,
Mm-hmm.
but I also have content to show form, and I can see things. And if I'm
Right.
working out with somebody on video, I can see things. So I was a personal trainer. And then one of the greatest things back in 2005 is I was named best personal trainer in Los Angeles by Elite Traveler magazine.
Oh
How did
wow.
I get that? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'd worked with someone who worked at the magazine years ago, but we had a falling out. It did not work. Like, for anything, I thought I'd be blacklisted, but I somehow got nominated as a best personal trainer in Los Angeles. So that was really cool. And at the
Right.
same time, there was an event happening where I was it was called Train the Trainer, like sort of speaking, public speaking. And the person who was doing it was also announcing that they were doing their very first. This is a very successful company that's still around that does all kinds of large scale events. And they said, oh, we're going to do a extreme health. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be on that stage. and
Right.
and prior to that, I hadn't spoken in front of thousands of people on a stage before doing what I do, but I was like, nope, I'm gonna be on that stage. And I made that happen. And I was on that stage in 2007. I was
Hmm.
one of the presenters for two slots in the schedule. I presented at Extreme Health in 2007 in front of thousands of people and did very well. So as a trainer though, I am very good with biomechanics and physiology and everything, biochemistry, everything that goes along with being a trainer.
Hmm.
But of course, the person that I am, and then on the side, I'm doing this law of attraction stuff. I'm dealing with my emotions. I'm always interested in why. Why do I feel this way? Why did this happen to me? Not as a like a 5-year-old why that doesn't quit, but like as a
Right.
like I'm just looking for answers. And when I
Hmm.
find the answer, I'll stop asking why.
Right. Right.
And so as I'm digging with my clients and I'm noticing sort of the whole package, for me, working out was not about it is about your body in terms of what it looks like, but it's not. That's not it's not for that. It's for I can see ahead the people that don't take care of
Hmm.
themselves and how they struggle with joint pain, with being obese, with having no metabolism, with having disease, with having right. And that I don't want to be that.
Yeah,
Just look
100%,
ahead.
100%. I mean, that's why I quit drinking. That's why I eat right. That's why I go work out every day, because I don't want to be fat and old and hurting and in pain. I'd rather pay the price up front and be fit for as long as possible, you know?
Right. What you do now in every way is an investment in what your future looks like. So for me, that but there was also this piece of motivation and why. Like why are people working out? And I'd have all kinds of different whys that people were working out, but I noticed that some of them were super committed and some of them weren't. And I definitely was not a fan of those that were only caring about how they looked.
Right,
My
right.
first book is called Fit to Love: How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to
Hmm.
Attract Love of Your Life. Because and that's about the energy underneath why I'm doing this. If you're
Hmm.
doing this and in your mind, you're like, I hate myself, and I'm doing it because I want to look good so someone will love me. Wrong energy.
Right,
Again,
right, right.
anti law of attraction. You are not going to attract what you want in that energy. I, without realizing it for many years, would work out because I am planning for my future, because I
Hmm.
love myself and I want to feel well and I want to be well. And my energy, even though I may not love it in the moment, I don't hate it, but when I may not love it, I feel so good afterwards. I feel so responsible. I feel so like I honored myself. And as a trainer, as I'm looking at these clients, again, I'm looking at patterns of overeating, patterns of emotional eating, patterns of abuse to themselves, either verbally or by not taking the care of themselves. And
Hmm.
that is not a routine problem. Meaning, I can make you the most amazing exercise workout routine that you're going to follow. It's going to get you results, but it's not that. It's not the routine's fault that
Hmm.
you aren't doing it. It's
Right.
what your beliefs are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So of course, I mean, as the longer I'm doing this, which was for 25 years, of course I'm going to get there. Of course I'm going to have the emotional conversation. Of course I'm going to ask the mindset conversation, because it's what the fuel underneath whether you do it or not, and
Right.
whether you stick to it. And ultimately at the end of the day, if you didn't if you didn't have a scale, so you couldn't judge whether the number was good
Hmm.
or bad, and you
Hmm.
like the way you looked, who cares? Who
Right,
cares what the
right.
number is? So in that field, and I just started moving so far, even though I'm still a great trainer, I moved so far into just the emotional and the spiritual stuff from a mechanical standpoint of looking at core wounds, all the things we're talking about, that I then just took the leap. And I took the leap because up until then, I don't have a degree
Right.
in psychology. And one of my greatest fears when I started my podcast, obviously, was that someone was going to say something like, JJ's not a therapist. Well, that happened. That day came. And what day also came is that a lot of people listening to the show would come and I don't really work with people one on one anymore in like small packages. I do groups, but
Hmm.
people used to be able to buy like a 2-session starter pack, and they'd show up and I'd say, what's going on? They'd fill out the form. And then within 2 sessions, literally 9 out of 10 times, I would get, holy crap, my whole life has changed. 10 years of therapy, and after 2 sessions with you, my whole life has changed. That happened so much that I finally thought, all right, I'm going to claim this. So, that's why I did the 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective.
Hmm.
Because, and again, that's so if anybody watches that, I'll do the disclaimer. If you love your therapist and you're different, you are a different person.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
But traditional talk therapy, you just talk about the same story over and over again. You never really change anything.
Hmm.
So you're just the victim of your own story for 20 years. But so for me, I moved into, and I gave myself permission through the podcast and through my live events to step into sort of
Hmm.
what I do now, which is empowerment strategist. And most people don't care that I go toe to toe with people who are in this field all the time, in terms of I get the
Yeah,
respect, I get
yeah.
the like, I've earned the right
Mm-hmm.
to, for my audience anyway, to coach them in every way on everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's because I walk my talk too on my show. People have been with me for years and years because anytime I do a live event, I ask the same question every year. Raise your hand if you listen to the show. Raise your hand if you've seen me change and grow over the last year, because I don't
Right.
teach anything I'm not going through.
Oh, I love that. May I borrow that
Of course.
creatively? Oh, thank you. I like that. That's really good because again, I'm doing this publicly. I want everybody to see what it's about, what it's like. If you scroll back and look at my videos from 4 years ago, you can see I'm overweight. I'm not doing terribly well and stuff. You know, you can. It's life changing, and I'm trying to share it too. Wow. I wanted to ask you about manifesting your partner. Because I manifested my partner and nobody believes me when I tell them that. And I wrote down exactly what I wanted in a partner. And I said to myself, if I was this woman, what kind of man would I be attracted to? And I set out to build that kind of man. And poof, just like that. Once I'd got done building that man to a point, the woman just showed up. I wasn't even looking for her. And she's wonderful. And so how did you go about doing that? And can you please explain to everybody that it is very real and there is a person out there on your frequency that will be attracted to you?
Well, and I'll do you one better. There's someone who will be attracted to you where you are right now, but if you're also growing, that person may not stay and you may not want to stay, and you may then
Correct.
need to
Very
upgrade to the
correct.
next.
Yes,
Because
very correct.
I manifested my husband in 3 weeks. And I did I used all my law of attraction principles. I did a vision board. I wrote my list of things that I wanted in a partner that I had been doing for years. And every time I'd get out of a relationship, I'd revise the list.
Mm-hmm.
So he fit most of the things that were on the list. Although there was a one sort of in the knockout punch sort of no way Jose list. I did allow one thing in that I thought would change. And of course that bit me in the butt later, but it wasn't wrong. So my marriage and divorce was the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's the reason why I feel 100% confident that I can help any couple from both points of view, the man, the woman, whatever, because I literally blood, sweat, and tears. My podcast was created to save my marriage. I knew that he wasn't going to listen to me, but if I brought somebody on who he would listen to, maybe we could move the conversation forward.
Right.
But because we met at a time where I wasn't as confident as I am now, or I didn't know as much as I knew then. But it did work and I had a great time, and we had a very, we were together for a while, but ultimately, I'm on a fast track and I'm kind of growing.
Right.
And we grew apart and we weren't going to get what we needed from each other, but I maintain, and again, I practice law of attraction in that relationship. I did not blame him for anything. I was never, if you knew me then, all my clients were shocked when I told them. I mean, some of them knew sort of the struggles, but when I said I was getting divorced or that, they're like, what? Because I was a happy person, a truly authentically happy person, because I lived the law of attraction. I did all the things to get my frequency, to tell the story that I wanted to tell, to hope and believe in a different outcome, and to live in that frequency and not to look at something that was going on with us or with him or whatever, and then use that as a reason to feel bad or complain or bitch or tell a bad story.
Right.
So
Right.
that was like my master's degree in law of attraction, because that's a very hard thing to do, is to live in a space where you are living in a different reality than the person who you live with.
Yeah. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
you're with. So fast forward, during that though, I was really working it. I was doing my journal every day, my appreciation journal every morning, and I would do 2 lists. One would just be what I appreciated, and I would usually appreciate 2 things, like what my life and my business, plus my husband and the things that I could authentically, truly appreciate. I would try to activate and really hone in on the things and milk the things that I could appreciate.
Right.
But then I would write my what am I looking forward to list. And what I'm looking forward to list is about stretching into and getting excited about and activating the feelings of having in this moment right now, the things that you want. And for me, they were things like someone that would want to do work with me, someone who would hold my hand, someone that would go dancing with me. And all the while I'm thinking I'm trying to elevate my husband. I'm hoping that this is going to be him. I had no idea that it wasn't going to be him. On the day I got to the end of my wit's end of trying things basically. And I said, you know what came to me was, especially because men are more creatures of habit than women are. And I thought, we don't have a chance in this house. And I'm like, maybe he'd wanted to move out and I was begging no and like, no, no, no. And then finally, like I just fought so hard. I said, you know what? You're right. Maybe you should go. And in my mind, I'm like, go away. Let's separate for a year. I was actually looking forward to going on Eat Harmony. I was like, oh, I just kind of want to test this out and see what this whole metric thing is about and like who they match me with. And that would be really fun and exciting. But in my mind, I thought, I'm going to have him go away because, people travel and they go and when you travel, all of a sudden you release resistance, you have open your mind, you get new ideas, you
Right.
see things differently. So I thought, okay, go away for a year. And then of course you want to be married. You wanted this to work out. You're going to have this aha moment and we're going to get back together in a year and it's going to help fix things. And then you're going to want to do the work. Well, the day that I said, and the thing is, I have to tell you, Sam, I was also having a lot of shame. I was having a ton of shame about how much on my show I had talked about relationships and brought these experts on and even me helping people with relationships, but I
Right.
can't save my own marriage. I wrote a
Right.
book about Fit to Love, right? I manifested my husband in 3 weeks. I'm going to get separated. I'm possibly going to get divorced. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I'm a fake. People aren't going to believe me. So here I am. I finally had the nerve to say, okay, we're going to separate. And we're crying and we're, having the conversation and dividing our stuff and whatever. And then the next thing you know, I have a client who I was training in Baltimore. He's a fellow podcaster. And he calls me up and he says, I need to talk. I said, oh, what's going on? Well, I can't really talk because I'm crying because my wife left me. I said, interesting. My husband and I just got separated today. Anyway, that person who is Doug is my person.
Hmm.
And so talk about manifesting. I manifested him in 2 hours.
Yeah.
He was already my client. I had no interest in him. I liked him as a person. I wasn't trying to secretly break up his marriage. We both had we had our both separate things going on. But when you look at the list of things that I was trying to say in the future, what I wanted, he's all of them.
Hmm.
He's every single one of the things. And it was like, oh my God. So I was gripping my husband, trying to hold on to something that we had moved past
Yeah.
energetically, that this was not going to work out. And the minute I released control, the minute I said, universe, just take care of me, show me the way, boom, like the
Hmm.
universe put in my hands exactly what I wanted. I just hadn't been willing to let go. But when I finally said, I'm going to let go and I'm going to see what happens, the universe is like, here. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, I want that guy. I want it to work out with my husband. And they're like, no, it's not going to work out with that guy.
Hmm.
It's going to work out with this guy. This is what
Yeah.
you wanted. This is
Hmm.
where you are. And I was like, oh, and he's my best friend. He's my person. He's a business partner. Like we have an amazing life. But I couldn't have gotten here without going through what I went through. There
Correct.
was
Yeah.
nothing wrong about what happened. I just grew and expanded. And he until his heart got broken by his second wife, he would never have been ready for me either.
Hmm.
He was completely unconscious. And so I looked at pictures of him and thought we would never have been together. It took his wife breaking his heart for the first time in his like at 50, having heartbreak
Hmm.
for him to break open emotionally to actually have these kinds of conversations and sort of have this kind of awareness. So, divine timing is real. And when you look at your partner, your work, your clients, and you're on a growth path, whatever's coming to you is a reflection of where you are right now. You can't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are.
Hmm.
And if you're going to keep growing you, then possibly, you're going to keep elevating and expanding what comes to you.
Yeah, I like 100%. I couldn't agree more. I'm very lucky and very blessed that I found it, and I'm very lucky and blessed, JJ, that I got you to come on the show today. We do have just a little more time for a couple more questions, if that's okay. Earlier, you had mentioned a couple of different authors and books, and I like to ask my guests, what are some of the most influential books that you've read that you would advise us to read? And you had mentioned The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, which is one I've never read, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Are there any other books that you recommend for the listeners to get them a little bit more open to the topic?
Well, you can get my book, Fit to Love,
Okay.
because I kind of discuss this. So talk about relationships and self-care and the whole 9 yards. So it's really about your relationship with yourself and dedicating that and using law of attraction a little bit, as well as planning, all the things. So fit to love, how to get physically, emotionally, and spiritually fit
Mm-hmm.
to attract the love of your life. So if having a relationship is something somebody wants, or improving a relationship, that will help you be the better, like learn how to be better you, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can get better from other people. Because it's not about you'll complete me. It's I have to work on me in order to attract something better, or
Yeah.
something that I want that I haven't had before. And then in terms of other books, well, I guess talk to me about topics. I mean, like what, because in the way of relationships, if you're in a relationship and you're struggling in a relationship, Getting the Love That You Want from Harville Hendrix and Kelly LaKelly Hunt is a great book that I like. Their work is, it's called Imago Therapy. Harville created Imago, Imago,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically means that you choose your partners to heal the wounds of your past. So there's no mistake. There's never a mistake. It's whether you take the lesson or not.
That's the truth. Yeah, yeah, I can see how that would work. All right, I got just a couple more questions. Then, thank you for the book recommendations. Um, Man, I just hate when my mind goes blank towards the end of a show. What's the last question? Oh, this is the question we ask every show. The show is aimed at guys that are, maybe 5, maybe 10 years behind us in the cycle of business and learning. What's the one piece of advice you would want to give JJ from 10 years ago to set her on a little bit better path than she may have been on back then?
Always listen to your intuition.
Oh, I like that.
Find a way to be in your zone of genius more, which is what the Big Leap talks about. But even without knowing what that is, you can kind of get what that means. Like as a personal trainer, I was really afraid to leave
Mm-hmm.
and let go, because it was my income. It was regular income. I had clients that were with me for 10 years. And I was charging probably at the top of what you could charge
Right,
being a
right.
trainer without working with a celebrity, even though I had celebrities too. But I'd said to one of my clients once, I'm using 25% of my gifts. I'm
Right.
bored
Mm-hmm.
because none of you want the other
Right,
75%. Right. So if you feel dead inside, if there is part of you that's bored with what you're doing and it doesn't light you up, quickly find a way to give yourself an outlet. That is why I started the podcast. I was still a trainer when I started my podcast, but my
Right.
podcast gave me permission to talk about anything and everything I wanted to. And that's what gave me the permission to allow myself to step into an area where people, ex-husband included, would say shit like, you're not qualified to say that. I'm like, well, I'm as qualified as the next person to say that, because
Mm-hmm.
this is my life experience and nobody can tell me what I didn't learn and what I didn't implement in my own life. So, right. But
100% right. Guess what? I'm not a surgeon either,
Right. Well, right. But no doctor's telling you not to have this show.
Right.
Right. So find your life force, your passion. I tell everybody that I work with and people that are on my show, if you only get one life in this physical body. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I believe you have more than one life, but
Same,
let's say
yeah.
right now in this whole physical body, you got a limited time here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't waste it doing something that you think you should be doing versus something that you want to be doing. If your business and your passion is driving you, then you're not really working. You're just, even though you may have to do things that you don't like and stretch
Yeah,
yourself
yeah.
into places that scare you, but the fuel underneath helping people or doing whatever you do in the world, if it doesn't light you up, then you're in the wrong business.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm lucky to get to do stuff that I love to do, and I work a lot, but it's stuff that I do that brings joy to me because I'm helping other people, and so it doesn't feel like work, Man,
Right.
JJ, you've been an absolutely outstanding guest. We're about up on time, but I really want to thank you for coming out today and give you a chance one more time to talk about your book and what URL that people can go to find you on the internet.
Just my website. Everything is there. JJFlizanes.com, JJFlizanes.com, because it has everything there. All my courses, all my books, all my podcasts, all the free stuff that you can get. So JJFlizanes.com, come on over and see what speaks to you. Check out the podcast and see if something speaks to you. Check out the free stuff on the homepage. Like I said, the three fastest ways to make money podcasting, or 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective. Yeah, just come check it out and see what would help your growth. The podcasts obviously are free,
Mm-hmm.
and everything on that homepage in the top is free. So you can just check out. I've got how emotions affect healing and disease. If you're dealing with, chronic pain or disease of any kind, cancer, leukemia, lung issues, whatever, like your emotions affect how your body responds to
Right.
healing. And
Right.
and so it's another thing that you can dive into too.
Well, JJ, I have had an awesome time. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing on the show with us. And man, yeah, best of luck with everything. I hope we get to catch up again in the future. Thank you for coming on.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much, Sam.
Guys, that was JJ Flizanes, the host of the Spirit, Purpose, and Energy podcast. I highly recommend you go check that out. And if you have enjoyed listening, please run over to her website at jjflizanes.com, where you can learn a little bit more about what it is and what she does. All right, that's going to do it from us for today. We will see you on Friday for a little more Friday Fire. Bye. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the show for today. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed the conversation that we've had and you want to learn a little bit more about the systems and processes involved in running businesses online, join our Facebook group over at FollowSam.Live. All right, that's it from me for today. You'll be good, stay safe, and I'll see you next week.